Welcome, Robin.
Thank you, Lindsay, for having me today.
Thank you for coming. This is Robin Green. She is a dear friend of mine and also a leading pioneer in the world of holistic wellness, acupuncture for families and wellness, and acupuncture specifically for children, which is a topic I really want to touch on. But I feel so honored to be a part of your day today. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Oh, Lindsay, thank you for having me. I love talking about this and helping parents have additional options to help their children and their families stay healthy naturally.
Ah, my goodness. I wish that I had found you in the beginning of my journey. And I think we have some overlaps in our journey. I was reading your story and you had eczema in your family with a young one as well. Tell me a little bit about how you got on this wellness journey and where it's led you.
Yes. Well, I was always interested in healing and natural health, and I went to acupuncture school. And after I graduated, shortly thereafter, I had my first son. And as an infant, he developed a case of really severe chronic eczema. And, initially I didn't know much about treating kids. And so I just went the conventional route, and we tried all the creams, and, we did all the laboratory testing. And at the end of the day, there was nothing that the doctors could do to help his eczema. Nothing was working. And so I took it upon myself to study pediatrics simply so I could heal my son. I just had this fire within me to ease his suffering and to help him feel better. And so in the process of doing that, I realized that my true calling was to work with kids.
I love it.
Yeah, I just had this moment one day in the middle of class, one of my pediatric classes, where I literally, tears were just rolling down my face, because I was like, I know I have to do this. And the more I talked about pediatrics and my son's experience to other parents, they started bringing their kids in to see me, and it just sort of grew organically. It wasn't something that I necessarily decided I was going to have this specialty, but it's sort of like I really feel like it just called me, and it just sort of unfolded on its own.
Oh, it's so beautiful, and it's so needed. What are some of the barriers for parents to getting them into the mindset of trying acupuncture or looking at alternatives for healing for their kids?
I think the biggest barrier is fear, because there's not a lot of support from medical practitioners sometimes to take alternative routes. Yeah. So, because doctors aren't familiar with the other healing methods necessarily, so some of them tend to shy away, and some of course are supportive.
Sure.
So I think part of it is just trusting that other alternative methods like acupuncture are totally safe and effective for their kids.
Yeah. Have we come to a place where people are acknowledging the full system, the full body? I mean, I'm thinking back to when I was on this journey with my son, who's now 14, and like you said, there are some practitioners who are still like, this is just a skin condition. This isn't attached to anything else. You put the cream on the skin and that's what heals it. And there were then some allergists who were beginning to say, okay, maybe it's food related, but we're not really sure. Some that were willing to say it could be related to what the mother's ingesting if she's breastfeeding, but some not. Some allergists out there were still like, there's nothing that passes through breast milk at all, which is amazing to me. So are we at a place where that's beginning to shift, where we understand that the skin is an outward expression of everything that's going on in the body, or is that still a learning curve?
I think it is still a learning curve. I think what has shifted is there are a lot more doctors that are studying holistic and integrative medicine, and those doctors are very open to this the holistic view of eczema. Unfortunately, though, I think for most conventional doctors, it's like, well, if the laboratory tests say it's negative for food, then it's not food.
Right.
But what we do know, what parents know anecdotally, is a lot of times when they eliminate certain foods, like for my son, when we eliminated eggs, that was the thing.
Exactly.
That was it.
Yeah, same with my son. Interesting. So on acupuncture specifically, and I know that you integrate so many different aspects of wellness in, but acupuncture specifically, what are some of the misconceptions and barriers for parents to think of going to an acupuncturist for their child? You mentioned fear, but I'm imagining that's not just fear of the concept, but actually fear of what is a session? What is it like? What are the needles like?
Yes, exactly. And I think too, so if you've had, as an adult, if you've had acupuncture, you know the acupuncturist is going to put the needles in and you're going to rest for 30 minutes.
Right.
But for kids, that's not true necessarily, especially like babies and small children. The needles that we use are sterile and disposable, and they're super fine. They're so fine. They're about the size of a strand of hair. So they're virtually painless. And I work on babies all the time, and I do needle them, and the needle I literally just tap it in and take it right out. So the process itself takes like 1 second or less to do that. And babies don't cry because it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
I think when kids have the experience of going to the doctor's office and getting a vaccine or a blood draw, they've had these big needles and they hurt and they cry. And so I think there's apprehension and fear that like the acupuncture needles would be similar to that.
Right.
And they're not. And the thing with acupuncture is that we have more than one way of stimulating the acupuncture points.
Right.
So we can use these tiny painless needles. I can use massage. I can use pressure. I have little non-needle devices that stimulate the acupuncture points as effectively as acupuncture, but without any needles. So we have different options. So the treatment doesn't have to look like an adult treatment. It's very short. It's painless. And, it's actually really fun because we invite the children to be a part of the treatment. It's not something that's done to them. It's done with them. Like they're partnering with us in the process. And so, many of my patients, like when they're not feeling well, they ask to come and see me. Yeah. Because they know I help them. They know the acupuncture helps them feel better.
Helps them feel better. Yeah, I had such a unique experience. I mean, I think I was one of those people years ago who was afraid. I don't like needles. I have very small veins. So the first thing you do is think needle for needle. But then I lived in the Bay Area and lived in Northern California where there is a fair amount and access to acupuncture, and so I was having horrendous allergies. This is before my son was born, actually. Someone was like, you have to go try acupuncture for allergies. So incredibly effective for me with my allergy symptoms, but also I noticed all these other incredible shifts: sleeping better, less anxiety, ability to handle stress in general more, not as much fight or flight, like everything kind of coming into sync and play in my body. Amazing results. So then by the time I was taking my son, I hadn't even made the leap to bringing him in for himself, but there were times when I would bring him in because of my appointment. And I could nurse him on the table and lay down for 30 minutes. And so this interactive thing that you're describing started to happen when he was getting verbal and older, where he would point like to his arm and he would be like, can I have one too? And then as a parent, it's so fascinating to watch how that process for kids is so intuitively guided and so gentle, because they actually look more like a tiny little hair or filament than they look like a needle. They're bendy and they're kind of, really gentle and quick, tap, tap, big smile on my son's face. And then my son would often lay down and fall asleep with me. So we would just lay there on the table, and I had a very active, you'll tell us later, I'm sure, what element he is. But I had a very active son, but who could say, I would like 2 needles here and here, and then I'm going to conk out with my mom. So it was amazing and really fun to kind of start sharing in the mama community that I was in and among my tribe, that these misconceptions of your child is going to have to be stationary, or you might have to hold them. I've heard you'd have to hold your child down while the acupuncture. And I was like, it doesn't resemble any of that paradigm at all. I have to just mention this incredible video that I saw of yours, and we'll link to it here on the page. I mean, talk about the difference between that perception of being in a doctor's office and that feeling of maybe holding your child so that something is done to them versus what you tell us a little bit about what that video, just so we can frame what's in it. It's so special.
For years I've been saying, if only people could see this, how easy it is, because it's like trying to overcome, like, what does it look like to get, for a child or a baby to get acupuncture? Yeah. And so during one of the classes, because I train other acupuncturists to work with kids, we filmed me treating this baby. It's the first time I'd ever treated her, so I'd never worked on her before. She didn't know me. And she, it was the in and out needle, so I just go and tap the needle and take it right out. And you watch her, and she's just like interested. Oh, what did you do there? Yeah. And then she's like, at one point she's like, yay, like she did it. And it just shows how different acupuncture really is from those preconceived notions of it being, painful and restraining children and this horrible thing. It's actually very gentle, fun, playful, easy.
Exactly. Completely on the other end of the spectrum. You can leave all of those other preconceived notions behind, and instead it's something that a child would gravitate towards, seek, request, and know that it helps because they feel better when they do it. I know we'll mention this at the end, but I do just want to mention here that you have an amazing website full of resources for parents, kidsloveacupuncture.com. There's an amazing resource on that website that can help parents learn more about their children, even prior to a potential first acupuncture appointment, or maybe in conjunction. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so on my website, I realized that parents are really looking for natural solutions. Like most parents, I would say, they don't want to give their children medications unnecessarily. I mean, If they need it, they need it. But, if there's other natural ways we can stimulate the body to heal itself, parents are looking for them.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I created my website to give them a bunch of different resources for the things that Western medicine doesn't necessarily have good solutions for, like cough and growing pains and constipation.
Tummy issues, yes.
Tummy issues, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And in addition, what I've created is, in Chinese medicine, we have this concept called the 5-element system. And it's a system of correspondences that sort of helps us make sense of the world. And when you apply it to children, you can help understand your child's innate way of being, who they are. Like in Chinese medicine, we believe each child is born is like this unique person with this unique makeup, their unique constitution.
Yeah. And
when we understand what's driving that, then we can support them. We can bring out the best in them. We can make sure that the areas where their health is vulnerable, that we can support them during the time of year where they're most prone to certain illnesses. And so on my website, I have a 5-element questionnaire, which you can take. And when you're taking it, you just want to think about how your child behaves and in different settings. And a pattern will emerge. And then once you know your child's element, then at the end we have a guide to help you, what kind of behaviors do you need to model for your child? How can you best support them? How can you parent them in a way that's going to bring out the best in them? So that's what I have there.
So exciting. So is there a way to go into each of those elements a little bit without geeking out too deeply? Because I know that it could be an infinite discussion talking, but I want to introduce people a little bit to what those 5 elements are.
Absolutely. So the 5 elements are fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And you can think of the elements on a spectrum. And at one end of the spectrum, you have fire and wood, which are the children who have that element type are very, very active children. They're always on the go.
Okay.
And then on the other end, you have the more easygoing children. And I don't want to say they're not active, because I think all children are active.
Sure.
Just like how active
Sure.
are they? So on the other end, we have these sort of easygoing, a little bit less active, homebody kids. And then you have earth, which is right in the middle.
Okay.
And on the lower end, or the less active end, is metal and water.
Okay.
So the fire, like a wood child, I'll give you just a quick example of each element type.
Great.
But say, like a wood child is very curious and very driven. Like they're kind of like super active, super physical. They enjoy like running and sports. A lot of wood children are very athletic at a very young age. And they just have this sort of passion and curiosity that drives them. Then a fire child is also very active, but they're more active in a creative sense. They're a little more, they like to entertain people. They're very charismatic. They like to sing and dance and, be the center of attention, be in the spotlight. And these children never have a shortage of friends because people just love, fire kids. And then earth in the middle, earth children are like, they love being around people. They're also very talkative and very outgoing, but they're more peacekeepers. They want to keep the harmony in the group. They're they're the little, like the little girl that's going to be worrying about the baby or want to hold the baby and be like little mothers or little fathers. They really, that group dynamic is so important for them. And then metal children they're very easygoing. They're a little more quiet and reserved. Like they're the ones that, you drop them off in a new situation and they're going to kind of hang back for a while and check it out and see what it's about and observe. And then they're going to jump in after that once they're feeling comfortable. Metal children are really sensitive. Like they are sensitive little souls that they experience the world really deeply. Yeah. Both in their physical senses and emotionally as well. So we got to be careful to make sure that metal is fully supported and validated for all the things that they're feeling.
Got it.
And then finally, that brings us to water. And water children are the most easygoing. Like as a baby, a water child, you could put them on a table and they would just sit there because they're so content just observing the world around them. They have a really rich, creative inner world, and they kind of prefer to be homebodies. They prefer to be in their room playing with their Legos and drawing and doing something very creative. They may only have one or two close friends. And I think one of the things that really describes a water type is many people will say they're an old soul. They just seem to have this sage, this quality about them that they are wise beyond their years.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So that helps us understand how our children came in, who they are innately, to trust that it's not something we need to necessarily fix on either end of the spectrum, that we can honor their innate gifts. Does this also correspond to ways in which we help them move through illness, or even do specific illnesses go along with different types?
Yes, I would say it's not always, the illness doesn't always reflect the element type, but a lot of times it's very close. So like my son is a metal type, and he has skin issues. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that any other type can't have that.
Sure.
But yeah, each one, like for instance, Earth tends to have, more issues with digestion and, needs to really develop a healthy relationship with food. Yep. Wood types, they tend to be a little more, have anger or frustration that's going to be a little more present for them than say like a water type. So you will see differences in the illnesses. And the 5 elements, each element corresponds to a different season. Okay. So for instance, taking our metal example, metal corresponds to fall. So metal kids in the fall are going to just be more prone to if they have an issue, it's going to usually show up in the fall.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we want to give them extra support in the fall. Whereas like wood, the season is spring, so we want to give them extra support in the spring.
Well, and how often we hear mothers who have the awareness, oh, my child always gets sick in the springtime, or my child always gets sick in the fall. So they can also reverse engineer to find out how this corresponds potentially, or at least how to support them potentially in advance.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's like if we can predict what's going to happen, then we can take action ahead of time, and then we can prevent illness, and that's really worth so much. I mean, none of us want to see our kids suffering with a chronic cough all fall, but if we can strengthen their immune system in the late summer, then going into fall, they're going to have a much lower chance of contracting something that would be problematic for a longer period of time.
Well, that is huge, and I appreciate you so much giving us this tutorial. I really do want to encourage people to head to kidsloveacupuncture.com and find the 5-element questionnaire. Learn more about how the elements apply to likely their child, but also themselves, potentially even the family. I'm thinking that you could apply this model across so many different contexts.
So many, yes.
I love that. And I love to ask, if there were just one thing that a parent could do to start out on this journey towards a more alternative or holistic approach for their child, what would that one thing be?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think really for me, it's when we understand our child better, when we honor really who they are. Like everything, our relationship with them is better. Our ability to anticipate their needs and help with their health is so much easier, because I think sometimes we can compare our children to other people's kids, or siblings.
Yes.
How come he doesn't, how come he's so shy socially, or how come this is happening? And then when we understand, like, oh, but that's just his water nature, and then I feel like from there, it's like, it just honoring their little soul of who they are. It's like, it takes the tension and stress away, and that really supports their health and your relationship with your child.
Oh, that's so valuable and so true and so powerful. I think that as we begin to do that for our children, it has a ripple effect, and we begin to grant ourselves more permission. And there's such a potential for that unconditional love to blossom in that space of both awareness and honoring. So thank you so much for joining us today, Robin. I really appreciate it. Again, I'll put the links below. I encourage everyone to go find out more about kidsloveacupuncture.com and watch this adorable trailer, this little movie with this beautiful little baby, because I tell you, you will want to watch it over and over again. You'll want to take your kids in. If people aren't nearby you and wanting to find a resource for their child, what would you recommend in terms of them finding local acupuncture support for them?
Yes, so I have a directory on kidsloveacupuncture.com where they can go and search in their local geographic area and find somebody in their area. But you definitely want to find somebody that has experience treating kids.
Yes.
Because, just knowing that they will know how to approach it.
Yes.
And invite them in will make all the difference.
Well, and I love that they'll be able to find people who have also been able to work with you specifically, which is just such a blessing and such a gift. So actually, I take it back. Don't just visit this website, bookmark it, put it up front and center, because this will be a resource that you'll want to have. And I want to thank you again so much, and just tons of love from my heart. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you for having me today, Lindsay. This was really fun. I really enjoyed it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.